What's up, everybody? This is Joe Vega, and welcome to another episode of Flower Shop Secrets. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about what it takes to succeed as a florist. Most florists believe that creativity alone is enough to grow their business. Don't get me wrong, floral design is incredibly important. However, there's a lot more than that. My co-host Ed Castillo and I will be speaking with Jeanne Walters of Stargazer Florist in Corvallis, Oregon, about all those little things that you must do besides creating beautiful designs to be able to grow your business. Let's do this. So the big question is this: how can small business owners like us in the floral industry overcome the greed of order gatherers and bypass the deceitful games played by wire services? How do we market, sell, and deliver flowers online so we may break free from these antiquated practices and earn our freedom? Those are some of the questions we will answer on this podcast. I'm Joe Vega. Welcome to Flower Shop Secrets.
Hi, Joe.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hi there. Hi, Jeanne.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good.
Very nice to meet you. I'm Ed Castillo. I'm the Vice President of Sales at Lovingly.
Nice. Great. Fantastic.
Yeah, nice to see you. How's everything with you?
Good. We've been actually quite busy. It's actually been hard to keep up.
Wow.
So,
well, that's a good
yeah.
problem to have.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's good.
definitely. Definitely. I'd rather have that problem than the opposite. So
100%, especially
yeah.
with everything going on today, right? I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm definitely grateful for that, but it's sometimes I'm trying to make some adjustments so that I can just keep up because it's just been so much. And I was not expecting that at all.
Oh, wow.
So
And now is it difficulty, just out of curiosity, is it a staffing thing, just not enough bodies and help to really get you going, or just overload of
just a lot of orders. I mean, just like, and my staff does a fantastic job. I mean, it's just like this last week, we had to shut off our wire service for the weekend because we had 3 big weddings to do, and we're swamped, and just the amount of time that it's an average now for us to be doing about 15 to 25 deliveries a day.
Wow.
It's
Wow.
pretty normal for us. And so,
That's great.
which is, it used to be the average was like, 12 deliveries is a busy day. And now it's like, no.
That's every day.
That's the normal.
Right. So yeah. So trying to make sure there's enough with, product here in the shop and making sure there's enough, staff on hand. And I mean, right now I have 5 employees. So
That's good staff.
yeah, I have a good staff, but I still feel like I work really long hours,
Yeah,
but I think that's just a part of the industry, but yeah. So
And being a business owner, this is a hands-on industry. It's not one of those things where you can just be like, well, it's running like a well-oiled machine. I'm just going to go and hit the beach today. And
yeah, exactly. No, it doesn't work that way.
I know.
Not at all.
I
Yeah.
know.
And I think a lot of times too, when I do weddings, I mean, they just are, they're paying for me to be there, and they've met with me and they spent time with me and made that relationship, and they're paying for me to be there. So, I just can't just hand it off to somebody and say, see you later,
Yeah, that's their expectation. Well, it's funny that you say weddings. So that's good, because obviously with everything going on, weddings is one of those things that, a lot of folks had to postpone the events. They couldn't get together and everything. Yeah. So has that impacted you at all? But it sounds like you got some weddings still going though, right?
Yeah, it has. I mean, at the very beginning, we had some weddings kind of either postpone to like the fall or spring. And then I had one wedding that canceled. But it wasn't a huge either. And they said, well, when we decide to have the reception, we'll end up doing it, down the road. But they'll still use me. They just went ahead and canceled because they don't know when their reception is going to be. So, So other than that, I mean, I do, Oregon State University is here in town, and I'm an alumni of that. And we do a ton of events with them. So I've had 0. So that has really affected me. But I think that it will come back, once the university is really up and going, probably next year. So thankfully, being so busy with daily orders has really helped with not having the events. Right. Yeah, but it has definitely impacted me. So
in terms of bookings, are people actually still booking weddings for like next year?
Yes. So, oh yeah.
that train just keeps on going, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, like that's the thing that's on my to-do list this week is I got to get a hold of brides. I have like 10 wedding referrals from Lovingly that I need to contact, so I mean, I'm having lots of brides inquiring, and right now I'm finding that it's really, really last minute. I mean, like I have brides coming in like a week or two before wedding going, I need wedding flowers. I'm like, okay. Okay, I gotta get moving here,
You having been in business, since 2005?
Well, I've had it for 15 years. So
15 years. So let me ask you, Jeannie, then what was it that prompted you to get into the floral industry, right? What was it? What was the one thing that really pushed you there?
I started it as a college job at a shop downtown that had been there for a long time, since the 20s. And I just fell in love with it. I went to Oregon State University and got a degree in English. But here I am at the flower shop. I mean, I would go and do other things and come back. I kept coming back to it. And I just loved it, and I knew my community here needed a flower shop like mine. I knew that there was a need. I knew there was a need to have somebody that could service the university for events. I knew that there was, Portland is the closest big city to us. I mean, Salem is kind of big, but Portland's about 2 hours away. And I've had multiple people ask me, are you from Portland? Are you a flower shop from Portland? No, I'm right here in Corvallis. And I'm like, wow. And I think it's just because there was such a need for a florist to be up with the trends and be able to accommodate events and do all those things. And I just think there was a real need for it. And definitely has had its challenges at times, but I've really enjoyed it. And I really have always wanted to be a cornerstone of the community. And I really feel like we are that. And that's really important to me.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's, I've been in the industry for 20 years in the floral industry, and I've traveled all over the US and Canada and Puerto Rico and everywhere and visited shops. And and it's interesting because, they tend to be, the florists really tend to be that little hub in their community because, they see it all from the births to the, get people getting married to the people that pass away. And they really are that lifeline and that the psychologist, and they just do it all, right? I mean, you've seen it all. I've seen it too. And it's fascinating. And it really truly is.
And I say the same. It's like I'm florist, psychologist, counselor, emotional support, funeral, wedding planning. And I see people go through the whole stage. I've had some clients now that I've seen, the births of their children, and now they're in high school going to prom. And then those people, their older kids end up getting married, and I do their weddings. And then, so it's like you really establish a relationship with somebody. I think it's the human connection part of it that really I enjoy so much about it, besides the flowers. I mean, I love the flowers and I haven't lost my joy and interest in creativity in that. Thank goodness. But I think that's what keeps me going on it, really.
And it's one of the few businesses really left like that is a cornerstone of the community, if you think about it, right? Because even though a lot of it shifted online and people are ordering online and everything else, but when you think about it, like, there used to be our little hardware store and there was a local pharmacy, and now it's Walgreens and Home Depots and everything, but the florist still survives. It's interesting.
Yeah. And people are like, I mean, they will there are some people that are really loyal. I mean, if you work on that relationship with them, they'll come back and time again, and they will go to no one else but you. And, I'm lucky that I have some clients like that. And I think that there's some that, will just kind of breeze through and breeze out. But you're really delivering emotions, I think. And I think if you understand that, I think that, people notice it and they appreciate that, that you're not just delivering flowers, you're delivering a virtual hug in a sense, or delivering comfort, or you're delivering happiness and joy, so it's like, I think if you understand that, I think that your clients will respond to that. Very much
I
so.
agree.
I couldn't agree with you more. I wish a lot of florists would know that, exactly what you just said, because a lot of times, when you ask them what makes your business unique or why is your business doing well, is they may say, well, it's because of my designers, or we have the best flowers. It's all about the flowers, and it's just like, it's more than just the flowers, right? It's totally help them express themselves via card message, and things of that nature. So it's going the extra mile. So I'm glad to hear that.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And I would imagine even more so lately with, obviously global pandemic that's hitting and affecting everybody everywhere, right? But I think that's, we saw it just in our own business with all the flower shops that we work with. We weren't like everyone else coming into this thing. We really didn't know what to expect and how it was going to impact the floral industry in general. And we saw an uptick because people couldn't get together. You know, you think about, you know, we had Mother's Day that we went through.
Huge.
Biggest one ever, right?
It's
Biggest
huge.
one ever.
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah. Easter too. Like Easter used to be an okay holiday and it kind of faded out, but you can't go to brunch. You can't go visit grandma. You can't do this. Guess what? You have to do something that has that emotional connection. What better sentiments than flowers? And the florist, believe it or not, we're probably better positioned than most other businesses because they still have something that's unique. Same day delivery. Even Amazon can't do that everywhere yet, you know? I know they got drones and they're trying.
Yeah, and I think that was what was really huge for us was that just, I mean, we did like, I felt like Mother's Day lasted forever. I mean, it seemed like it went for like 2 weeks and I was like, come on, like be done already, you know? But the whole week before and the whole week after, I mean, we probably did a couple thousand orders. I mean, it was nuts. And just with like just with that 3-4 day range right before Mother's Day, I mean, we did probably easily 500 orders, you know? So, and then ordering it for that holiday was such a challenge. But
from supplies, you mean just the flowers themselves?
Some of my vendors weren't fully up to speed yet, and I'm like, "Come on, guys, I'm really busy here. You gotta keep up with the game here." Kind of, you know, I'm like, "Come on." So I think that ordering flowers was a real challenge. I mean, thankfully, I have a lot of really local growers that I was able to tap into, so that was really helpful. But just being able to. So many people were just ordering last minute because at that time Amazon was really backed up too, so they couldn't even, like, some things were a week to 2 weeks out before you could even have anything delivered. So we had so many people calling us last minute, so many people ordering online, and you know, and so many people asking for, you know, no contact deliveries and all this stuff, and it was just being able to meet that need was just mind-blowing. I mean, really, and it hasn't stopped.
So I can only imagine most of those orders obviously were online and over the phone, right? Because you're walking kind of like slow down.
Yes. And so when we were already set up, we had like a cart outside our door. And so people can do no contact pickups, basically. So, you know, people call and they pay over the phone and then it's right by our door. And so we said, we'll put your order outside on the door in the cart. And, you know, you can just, you know, give us a wave when you pick it up. And so we know you've picked it up, and it's been great. I mean, there've been some people that have been really scared to even come in the store. I mean, we're closed. The storefront was closed for a little bit, you know, but that has really helped too. And the no contact deliveries has been great. I mean, we're still using it. So
on the actual super tickets that we have with the that's fantastic.
Yeah, we're still using it, and we have a lot of people that are still asking about that. So
a lot of florists were like, please don't get rid of it after COVID. Like,
please don't. No, it's great. I love it.
Simplifies everything. It simplifies everything. It really does. Even within the system, just because the fact that it marks the order delivered, everybody gets notified. They don't have to talk to anybody. Now, is your store open now, like for walk-ins?
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So thankfully our area has not been like, we don't have as many cases as other counties. So we've been pretty good. I mean, we're still doing a lot of cleaning and all that kind of stuff, and we have to wear masks, and we do that. But I think that sometimes I have to spend some time kind of calming some fears of my clients. I had this one wedding that was really like, she kept asking me like, well, are we going to get COVID from like the ribbon on the handle of the bouquet? And I'm like, no, like, you'll be okay, you know? And so just trying to calm the fears and let them know what my protocol is for that kind of stuff really helps kind of calm their fears. So I feel like I'm spending more time, that's that psychologist part of it, spending more time kind of comforting their fears than anything. But I mean, I think, and I remember I had this one lady that called, and she was like, her son had gone to the hospital for something not related to COVID. And she was in tears, and she's like, I can't be there. It's so hard. And she's like, I'm so grateful you guys are open and you're able to deliver flowers to my son. It's a way that I can let him know that I'm there with him when I can't physically be there. And so she was just so grateful that we were open and delivering. And she just like, it just means so much. Thank you so much. She was crying on the phone. Wow. Because then I start crying with them. But, you know, it's just,
it's hard not to.
Right. It's hard not to, you know, so it's been really great to be able to have that connection and keep people connected when they can't physically be together.
So, and I think it's a thread of normalcy as well. You know, like the fact that the flower shop is still there, it's still open, it's been there for a long time. I can still connect with these folks. It still help me, that thread of normalcy when everything else is kind of crumbling around you. I think that's certainly a pillar of support for a lot of folks.
Yes, I mean, I remember a few months ago, we delivered flowers. I delivered flowers to a lady, and it was her birthday, and they had decorated her apartment. And they had taken all the happy birthday stuff and faced them in on our windows. And I went and did a no contact delivery and knocked on her door and then walked away. And I was watching in my car as mapping the next delivery, and I glanced up and I just saw her reaction when she got out of the doorway, and she just covered her mouth and got really emotional, and she started crying and just like, waved at me and said thank you. And I was crying in the car, and it's just like, but it's just because it was some sort, like you said, a sense of normalcy, and that she was able to feel like I'm recognized today because it's my birthday, and even when she can't be with others. And so I think that has really cemented for me, like, that my shop is important and what we do is important. It's not just about, it is about the flowers. You have to have good product to back up what you're doing. You have to have that. But you're really delivering emotions.
Yeah, it's basically an essential business, I think, in my humble opinion, because
oh, trust me, I was ready to get out there and get like campaign for that. I was.
Yeah. Well, we're human. We're all human, right? We're all social creatures. We need to socialize. What do they do when you really want to punish someone really bad? You put them on the confine. You get them away from everyone else, right? They can't socialize. So we have to socialize. It's in our DNA. So flowers is another way of doing that. So I would call that pretty essential.
Yes.
One of the things I wanted to ask you is we all agree that there's been an uptick in terms of like people wanting to send flowers, but have you noticed any particular occasion that has benefited the most, more so than the others, in terms of like, because of COVID now more people are sending like, I don't know, birthday flowers, or like, has there, I would love to actually do the same, to look at our data and then figure out if that's the case, right? Maybe it's just the same across the board. But have you noticed anything in your shop that?
Interestingly, I've noticed that. I think all of the occasions have gone up. Right. The one that's interesting to me is the just because.
Just because. Yep.
Just to cheer you up.
That makes sense.
So I had these on. There's one arrangement on the website. So it's the smiley face planter. And I have had to buy numerous cases of those planters because so many people want to send a smile. And I have gone through so many teddy bears. And I just think it's because people want to send, and so many of the messages are just to cheer you today, or wish I could be with you today, or, but I mean, we still get a lot of the occasions have been across the board have been increased, but that especially I've noticed there's been a lot more just to cheer you. So
yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
That one makes sense. One of the things that we've noticed, just in terms of talking to a lot of florists, and even new florists that are coming on board that want to, be part of the Lovingly family and get online and just get a business going for a lot of different reasons, because obviously there's a lot of people that are losing their jobs, they're getting furloughed, even some shops that, couldn't make it, but there are employees there that have the same passion and they want to try to venture out on their own. What advice would you give? You're someone that, you took a job out, while you were in college, you learned how to design. I'm guessing somebody kind and thoughtful and patient took the time to show you how to design, right, and make arrangements. What would you say would be one of the key ingredients just for somebody that's first getting started in this business? So maybe a hard lesson that you learned back in the day that you could share that experience with them.
Well, I definitely walked into the business having lots of floral experience, but zero business experience. So I think that's something that I had to kind of learn as I went along. And that's something I wish that I would have known. I definitely gained a handle on it, was able to figure it out. But I think that, I wish I would have had a little bit more business training before I walked in. But then again, also too, the floral industry is a whole different animal. It's totally different than any other industry. You have so many components that have to work together. Trying to explain to brides that, I'm sorry, your flowers didn't come in because of the hurricane down in South America. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, your roses were coming from there, so having to scramble and do that kind of stuff. I think that being really flexible is really important, and always learning. That's kind of my mantra, is I never stop learning. I never stop growing. I'm never going to stay constant. It's you have to change. You have to be nimble. So I'm definitely doing the same things myself right now, especially right now. But I think that surrounding yourself with mentors is really important. I've had so many different mentors over the years. I recently found out that was a person that really was real dear to my heart and was a mentor. He passed away recently in February.
So
and yeah, and you know, so I feel kind of like I'm living on his legacy in a way. And you know, when he retired back actually a year ago, he retired officially and gave me his florist knife. And I was like, really? You're giving me your florist knife? Like, that's huge. Like, a florist knows that when another florist gives you their knife, that means they're passing the baton, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that I've surrounded myself with so many great mentors, whether it be it business wise or floral designing. I've had so many wonderful people that have stepped in and showed me how to do it, how to, you know, and I've kind of learned from watching other people too. And I think it's just really valuable to surround yourself with great people. I have a great staff, and that's something that's really important. Invest in your people. I work really hard to maintain relationships, not only with my clients, but also with my vendors, because your vendors will go to bat for you, and they'll do that extra work to find you that special product if you have that relationship with them. So I think that's really relationships are really important, I think, in all aspects of business. So I really work hard at that. So
yeah, no, I think
that's
hit
awesome.
on the head, Joe.
Like that's I've never heard that before. I think that's incredible. So like passing along the knife is like passing along like a lightsaber, for example. Like,
yeah,
like that's
absolutely
awesome.
I was like floored when he did it. I was like, looked at him, I said, are you sure you want to do this? Cause like, this is big. Like, when you pass on your floral knife to another florist, that's big. And he's like, I'm done. He says, you take it, you know?
And that
so
knife had many miles on it, right?
Oh, it did. He was in the industry for 50 plus years. I mean, long time. So,
wow.
Yeah. So I was like, I knew in the moment that it was special, you know, that, and wish he could have had longer to enjoy his retirement. But yeah, just, you know, I think just realizing that it's really important to continue on those legacies. And he loved floral design, and for him it was the once again the human connection of flowers. I mean, you love the art of floristry, but you also have to really love the human connection, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, no, it's you know, having been in the business for a few years myself, and it's you touched on a few points there. There's no two flower shops alike.
No,
there really isn't. This is not a cookie cutter industry.
No.
And, you know, the flowers you get in Oregon and the style of the shop and even the people that you deal with are completely different than Florida or New York or Canada.
Yep.
And, you know, and I think people, and of all the folks that I've met over the years, you know, very few people get into it for the money, because if you got into it for the,
no,
you know, yeah, you're not getting into it to get rich, right? So, but you become rich just in terms of, like you said, the relationships and the people that you meet. That's really the enriching part of this business. And there's no substitute for that. There really isn't. That's a great answer. And I think that's some great advice for anybody that's getting in. And, you know, your other point about having a mentor and reaching out and talking to people that have been doing it. I think a lot of folks that get into the floral industry or any industry in general, they're hesitant to do that because they think, well, they're not going to help me. They're my competitor. I've never been in an industry where more people share and collaborate and share ideas. I mean, you know, if you could expound on that, but I mean, what's your experience been with that?
Yeah, I mean, you always have that competition, you know, with other people, but I think that for the most part, I try really hard to maintain good relationships with the florists in town. Because we're all in it together, and it's, you know, like, that's a common phrase right now, but we are, and, you know, we have different ways of doing business, and I think we all have a niche that we can fill, and what my shop does may not be necessarily what the other shop does, and that's okay. But I think that it's really important. It's another layer of relationships that's important. Because I think we can all really come together and whenever we may need. I mean, there are times where I run out of something and I'm calling the other florists going, please, do you have any of this? You know, and other florists do that to me too. So I think there's plenty of business for everybody. And there's a lot. So
I agree. And we're
great
seeing
need.
a big shift too. I think a lot of folks, you know, especially florists, you know, they still see, you know, and again, you know, it used to be, and I don't know how Corvallis was, but I guess maybe you can tell me, when you first got back into it, back when you started out, how many flower shops were in that town?
Quite a few.
Right?
Yeah, there were like, I don't know, 8, something like that. It seemed like, and I have watched some flower shops go by the wayside, and I have watched some do really well, and I have watched some new ones start up, and I have, you know, I think when I bought the business, it just happened in a matter of 2 weeks, and it was quick, and like all of a sudden, and like we were negotiating, and then all of a sudden I was walking in with keys 2 weeks later, and I was like, oh my gosh, and I've got to do this, you know. And I think that I had never been in this shop before until I bought it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, it was a little shop, 500 square feet. And I think that it was quite the ride, but you know, you come in and you just start changing it. And like it was declining in sales. And then I think within 6 months we had more than doubled that.
Wow.
So, because I had a really clear idea of what I wanted to do, and I had for a long time. So I think having a clear vision of what you're wanting to achieve is helpful, and it changes, doesn't stay constant, but I think having a clear vision of what you're after really helps a lot.
Yeah. And setting goals. I mean, you have to have goals and something to strive towards, right? So,
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not near done.
No.
You know, I have so many, and same thing, my goals have changed over time too, you know, and I'm not anywhere near done yet. So, I have a long ways to go still in achieving my things, and it probably will never be done, thankfully. So,
well, yeah. That's a reflection of your passion, which is fantastic to see, really. Yeah. And, you know, you'd mentioned there's about 8 stores when you started out there in Corvallis, and I'm sure it's probably maybe half of that.
It's about 5 right now. Yeah.
5. So, I mean, I've seen it a lot just across different cities and different states. And, it's, you know, one of the things that we tell florists all the time, because, you know, we're on the online game, and that's where a lot of consumers are shopping now. Yep. So that competition used to be, well, that's the flower shop down the street from me, and she's my direct competitor. Yeah, kind of. Not necessarily, you know, they are to some degree, but the real competitors are online now, because there's a lot of, you know, wire services and order gatherers and all these folks who make them believe that they're in Corvallis, and a lot of folks that maybe haven't done business with you before, they don't know any better. They might order flowers 2 or 3 times a year. They see a brand name that they've heard before, and they order, and the experience isn't the same. And it kind of puts a little dent in what flower gifting could possibly be until they actually deal with a real flower shop and they have that experience, right? So
yeah, I think a good indication too is I have a lot of new customers coming in, but I also have many repeat customers. So for me, that retention is really important. And oftentimes I'll have to educate my customers on that and say, and they're like, if there's an issue sometimes with the wire service or something like that, they're like, oh, next time I'm just ordering from you. You know, I think it's really, really important to follow it up, you know, with good customer service. You know, I worked for Disney for a while. Oh. And I am in Florida, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I worked at the Calypso Trading Post at the Caribbean Beach Resort.
I love it. I live in Florida. I'm in Jupiter, and I go to Orlando all the time. My daughter's going to school there.
Yeah. So I think from them, I really gleaned a lot about how you treat a customer. So I don't really call them a customer. They call them a guest, you know, and I really feel like when they're here, or if it's online, even online, they're still a guest in my home, in a sense, in my business. And so I always treat them like as if they're a guest. And I think that, and I try to teach that to my staff as well. You know, that you're a guest. I usually call them clients instead of customers. But you just have to treat them with that little extra service. And oftentimes when you're going to have those issues where nothing's going to be perfect, and you're going to have a problem. And I always remember that's a guest service opportunity. So I use it as an opportunity to save a client. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I've had a few that haven't worked, but there have been times where I have had there's been a bad experience, or something's gone wrong, and I've seen it as an opportunity. And then all of a sudden I've got a lifelong client, because they're like, you know, something happened and she handled it so with grace, and we fixed it, and now it's great. And then like, I'll never go to anybody else. Right. So I really try to see that as opportunities instead of like, oh my gosh, we have a problem, you know.
You see it as an opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a very unique perspective. I love your perspective about like working with other shops in your town, because a lot of florists believe like that's the competitor that they actually see, but they don't realize that most of the competition is actually happening online now. So the order gap, the wires, everyone else is actually your competitors, but they just have it in for the person down the street, but they're not really, although they're not the ones who, you know, the town is big enough for both of you guys, you know. So I love your perspective on that. That's great.
Yeah. And thankfully we're in a community where we have we have international students too. So we have a vast influx of people from all over the world, really, that order for, you know, university students and things like that here. So we're blessed with that. But so there's more than enough. I feel like there's more than enough business. So.
Oh, there always is. And you listen, you know, the proof is in the pudding. And when you look at your reviews, we actually did a little bit of homework before we got on with you today, Jeannie, and your reviews are outstanding. I mean,
Thanks.
you have outstanding reviews. And I think, you know, one of the things that I think some florists lose the sight of is it is a changing, evolving industry. It always has been. And, you know, obviously your local customers are, you know, bread and butter, like you have a loyal following, which is fantastic. But the online game has changed. And a lot of folks don't understand that, you know, it's not just a website, that's your online store. And one of the stories we tell people is, you know, you have to understand when I come to visit your shop, if I go to Stargazer, I pull into your plaza, you know, there's a restaurant, a dry cleaner, a bank, whatever in the same plaza, you're the florist, it's a destination, I go there.
Right.
Well, when most people who are shopping online and they're using their mobile device these days, which is how they do business, they go online and they do a search for flowers in Corvallis. Guess what? Every single store in that plaza is a flower shop. What differentiates you from anybody else, and the service that you provide, because a lot of people, because you don't see them, you don't talk to them, they're just placing an order and it's a piece of paper that prints out in your store.
Right.
They treat it a little differently. It's not like somebody standing in front of you. And, you know, if you maintain that same level of quality and service for the people that are shopping online, which is a growing segment of the business, it makes a huge difference. And that's, I think, for shops that are getting into the game, they need to have sight of that, because especially, and even for shops that have been around a long time, because it's almost like an afterthought. Like, I got my website and I got that, but my business is here. My store is here. I come here every day. Yeah, but a big chunk of the people that are visiting you and interacting with you are interacting with that online virtual store. And what we tell people is you almost want to have an employee online. That, you know, that funnel on store that we have, which is that gifted guiding experience, was designed as if, you know, to try to recreate the best experience for buying flowers, which is me standing in your store talking to you. You're going to guide me. You're going to tell me the right colors, the right flowers. You're going to nurture me. Well, we're trying to recreate that online. And I think for a lot of florists, they struggle with that because they can't see it, feel it, touch it. And, you know, that's the business, right? So.
Right. Well, I feel like the online is just another version of my storefront. I mean, it's another way of presenting myself to the world. And that's how so many people find me. So many people find me that way, whether they're ordering online or they'll say, I get so many phone calls. I'm looking at your website and I want to talk to you about this or that. Do you have this? And I want to know if I could change this, or, you know, so that's mainly how people find me. And we're such an online world now that I think it's just, you have to see that as a way of, it's another version of you, basically. It's another version of your store. It's just an online version of it. And you have to have that mentality, or it's just not gonna work.
But you do have excellent reviews, you know, like
Thank you.
That's you know, 4.8. That's astonishing. Like, that's great. Like, can you share with us some of like the tips and tricks to sort of like, you know, when you have an angry customer, what is, I mean, you did already say that you actually see that as an opportunity to make things better. Is there anything else that you do to sort of like make sure that your reviews are top notch?
I think the one thing that I've kind of learned is that it's really important that, like, if we have to change something in the order, that we give the customer a call. Or if we have to make a major change, the only times I've really seen a situation where the customer's been really upset has been when we've had to really change something because of availability. And I think most people really appreciate that extra step of communication. And then we also offer, like, if anybody ever wants us to send us a picture, we'll offer to send them a picture of the arrangement before it goes out. So just, once again, that little extra touches of stuff. And I really try to make the person feel like, even though I've got, you know, 20 or 25 other orders that day alone to deal with, that they're the most important person I have that day to deal with. And I want them, it takes a little bit extra effort and time, but it really makes a lasting impact. And then you're building that trust with that customer so that they'll come back time and time again. And I do tell people that if they have a really positive experience, please leave us a review. And I think having the online orders where they can easily just click a link and then leave us a review is great. It really helps a lot. My reviews have really jumped up because of that. But I think it's also, you know, it's always that little bit of fear, like, oh gosh, somebody's gonna leave me a bad review, you know. So I think at the same time, looking at it as, like I said before, as an opportunity that I can make this customer happy. And most oftentimes I get reviews from those.
Okay. In
you
which
know.
ways you mentioned you call them, right? Is the phone is the primary channel that you use to actually communicate with them?
Phone and email, actually. If it's an immediate question, I'll call them. But I have so many people that will place an order online and then send me an email and say, oh, by the way, this needs to be delivered by a certain time, or I have a question about this or that, or, the customer sent me a picture and I wasn't quite happy, So, the email is another communication that we've been doing a lot of. I feel like I'm on my phone all the time. Between emails and, texting them pictures and things like that, emailing pictures, receipts, things like that. But I do really feel like it just that extra step of, giving that communication is really important. So.
Yeah. Okay. And I think, it's, I think sometimes we lose sight too, we're in the people business, all of us.
Yes.
We're all in the people business, and
yes.
going that extra mile makes a big difference, especially in floral gifting, because it's an emotional gift. So, right. So they're concerned about where that order is and this is the right flowers, because like you said, it's an anniversary, it's a birthday, it's whatever it might be. So they have an emotional attachment to it, and connecting with that person as a human. I think some shops lose sight of that, and I think that's another nice tip to share with people, because everybody is busy. And when you get, you've got orders coming in from all directions and you're just trying to keep up, and you got drivers coming in and out the back door, and I'm too busy, I can't call. No, that's why your reputation is what it is. That's why the reviews are as positive as they are. And that's what separates, the elite florists from just the everyday florists who are working and struggling. And, it is what it is, but we're in the people business, and, anybody that tells you different, I think, they just don't get it. So.
Yeah, it definitely is a people business. And I feel like I do more of that every day than sometimes I do floor designing. Yeah. Dealing and I think too, is like it's just those little extra touches, and when I making that person feel special, and and oftentimes if there's a problem, sometimes I realize that it's not about me. There's really actually something else going on. Yeah. Especially if it's like a death in the family, they're grieving and there's other things going on. And so sometimes I try, it doesn't always work, but I try my best to kind of emotionally remove myself from the situation and realize that there's probably something more going on behind it. But then at the same time, validate how they're feeling and, say, I understand what you're going through right now. How can I make it better?
That could be a challenge though, right?
Very.
Like going up and down with those emotions. Like, how do you do that? Because I can only imagine somebody walking to your shop and they're very happy because they're like, something wonderful is happening to them. But then the next client can be like, their mom just passed away. How do you mentally prepare for that?
I think it just comes naturally to me in a lot of ways. And I've developed it over the years. But one of the things I had learned at Disney is that you meet a client where they're at. So if you can read their body language and what they're saying and where the emotional state is. And I meet them where they're at. So you can even hear that on the phone, and somebody, like, I always tell my employees to smile when they're on the phone, because you can tell when somebody smiles on the phone, you can hear it.
100%.
So, you can get the emotion from somebody when they call. And so I definitely, I tell my staff, don't be like, oh, hi, how are you? And check all chipper when somebody's calling for a funeral. You just, right. That doesn't make the client feel heard. So it's learning to read those signals and meeting the client where they're at. And then, you kind of have to then take a deep, once they leave or get off that phone call, you have to kind of, sometimes it's a little bit more emotional than others, and you have to just kind of take a deep breath. And then you have to kind of let that go and then be ready for the next person. So I think it is an emotionally draining job at times, but I think of the client I had once that, well, she's still a good client of mine. I did her wedding, and it was a wonderful occasion several years ago, and we had a great time doing it. And I've been there for all of her different occasions in life. And her mother passed away this last fall. And I was there hugging, it was before COVID. I was there hugging her, and, and she wanted me there when I was, delivered the flowers for the casket spray, and she was hugging me and we were crying together, and she wanted me to place the flowers on the casket, so being there for her is really important. And like, she's like, so, and I know, and the thing is, I don't do that because I want their loyalty. I do that because I genuinely care. And I think people see that and they respond to that. And if you're if people are drawn to that, and I think that if you I know it seems like people are like, oh, well, I'm in business, I don't want to do that. And like you said, we're in a business of people, and you have to go into it knowing that. If you don't, then you aren't going to be successful. Simple as that.
I agree. Let me ask you, one of the things that we do is collect data, right? We've got websites all over, and we're constantly looking to see where we can improve and how we can improve the flow and the process. So you just touched on something where, when you answer the phone to take an order, you really have to be emotionally in tune to figure out right instantly almost, what's the state of this person? Are they happy? Are they down? What's the occasion? So do you, what's the flow that you have? Do you have when you train your staff on taking an order, right? Because it's an art, really, right? Because you're taking an order, you're trying to upsell as well, because you are in business, so you want to make sure that you're giving them the right gift, but at the same time you're creating value and making sure that you're selling, which is what you're supposed to do. What's your flow like at the store, and how do you train your staff when it comes to actually taking a phone order?
Well, oftentimes we'll tell them, when you're on the phone, and sometimes the client is really forthright with information and sometimes they're not. So sometimes you have to ask them questions, say, oh, what's the occasion? Or, when we answer the phone, we say, how can I help you? And sometimes, like I said, they want to talk, and sometimes they just don't. So those are the customers, and I'm like, okay, you just have to take the order, take the information. And oftentimes the card message will give you an indication, but sometimes they come to you, they're seeking, when they're calling, they're oftentimes going, I have no idea what to send. And so being able to act, this is my job, this is my industry, this is what I do, so I'm oftentimes helping them with card messages and helping them, like, what kinds of flowers do you send for a funeral? What kinds of flowers do you send for a birth of a child, and each occasion has different idiosyncrasies to it. And I think that just asking a question, a kind of a neutral question, is really helpful in guiding the conversation, and also helps the client understand that you're really listening to what they're saying. And I think that makes them feel,
opens them up.
Yeah, it gives you, build a little bit of trust with them. And oftentimes they'll call and say, well, I'm not the florist, I'm not the professional, what would you advise? So I think actually coming back and being confident with the fact that you can provide something for them and help them, then that only helps you in the conversation when you're asking them what they're looking for. And sometimes I can help them. And if they don't, then I give them information to where they can go to get it, so.
Which is helping them.
Yes.
Which is still helping them.
And oftentimes if I can't provide it, they'll come back for me for something else, So I think it's just really important that you ask the right questions, but ask them in a way that's neutral, so that they they build that trust with you. So
and you are the professional, so they are looking for guidance, so that's really what it is. And it's funny because you were an English major, you must have written some pretty good cards in your day, is my guess.
Sometimes I feel like I write books, but it is really interesting. Sometimes I find myself like, oh, this is not spelled correctly, or like, you need some punctuation here. So I'll find myself correcting card messages, especially from wire services. But I'm like, I don't think this is correct.
Would you say that's the thing that most people have difficulty with, like either on the phone in person, just expressing themselves, right? They know how they feel, they just don't know how to say it, or like.
Yes, and that was another point I was just going to say, is that I often ask them what emotion it is that they want to portray in the conversation. So they're like, when they like, for example, they'll say it was for a funeral. I'm like, okay, well, do you want to cheer them up, or do you want to express sympathy? And so I want to cheer them up. Okay, well, then you want a bright and cheerful arrangement then. And if you want something soothing and comforting, then you're going to want something that's going to be in the whites and the greens and blues and lavender, softer colors, and so, and they go, oh yes, because most times flowers are emotions. So, you're portraying an emotion with the flowers. People have emotional reactions to flowers. That's one of the wonderful things about flowers, and one of the difficult things about flowers is that, oftentimes, certain flowers have certain memories and attached, and the smell of things have certain, like the smell of carnations makes me think of my grandfather's garden.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, so when I think that you understand that, I think then people, oh yes, I want to send, like today we're sending out an arrangement that has heather in it. And the reason is because the woman is named Heather, but her mother recently passed away, who was a botanist, and she named her after the plant of heather.
Right.
So it's really, really important that we get Heather for her today to send that order out, because we're to train again emotion, and memory. And I think that if you grasp that, it becomes, and I really try to instill that in my staff, that people are sending an emotion, and you have to understand that, that that's what it's about.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
It's one of the things, again, looking at the data, right? It's because talking about the emotion and the enclosure card and you having to write out things, and they're always asking for suggestions. It's one of the things when we look at our websites and where do consumers that are shopping online, where do they get hung up? Where do they spend the most amount of time? The card message. They don't know what to say. They don't know how to say it. I mean, we provide them with some suggestions, but that just seems to be standard across the board in the industry. And yeah, it's like you said, it's just about asking the right questions to get them to open up, and then you can pull it out of them.
And building that trust. It's
Yes.
you can very easily or not so easily establish that trust with somebody, whether it's online or over the phone. And I think that speaking with confidence, but empathy is really important, so that they trust that you're going to be able to do what you say you're going to do, and then but that you're hearing where they're at. So, and there oftentimes we have lots of happy stuff, and we, celebrate with them, and we have, when I go to deliver a wedding, I make a big show of it when I show up with the wedding flowers, not because of me, but because it's her big day.
It's their day. Yeah.
It's their day, and I want it to be special for her. So I make sure that I'm happy wedding day. How are you? How's it going? I'm here to help you. I tell them, my brides before the weddings, I'm like, I'm your flower fairy. So I show up, I get everything done, and then I flutter off and I'm gone. So it's like, so that they have the confidence that I'm going to take care of it for them, and I'm going to be there for them. And they have that confidence, so that they just, I did a wedding this last weekend for some really good clients of mine, and they were like, the groom had been in a bad accident. He'd broken his back, and he was actually worked hard to be ready for the wedding, and he had to learn how to walk again. And
God.
yeah, so to be involved in that wedding was really special. So I really made sure that, when I went there, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy for you, and here's your flowers. And she was just so happy. And I just took the time that it needed. I was paid for it, but, I made sure that I was there for her, and for them, because I needed to be. And this was really important date for them that they were working towards, really hard to get towards, gave them a goal, so I wanted it to be special and perfect for them, because they were searching for that. So
that's an amazing story, actually,
yeah.
right? I mean, that's really, truly an amazing story. And I mean, and these are the things that, I mean, they happen every day in this industry. It's always things like that. They happen all the time. So
Every day.
Every day, right? Every day we see, that type of stuff.
So one of the things, sorry.
No, go ahead.
One of the things you mentioned before was like, you try to match the emotional state of the customer. And, you kind of help them write the card message by saying like, well, how do you want them to feel, And that's great. That's fantastic. That's what, that works, right? Especially in person, but I notice you do have the Loving Funnels on your website, and that's actually something that we do for you on your behalf on your site. We actually ask the customer, well, how do you want them to feel? You want them to feel happy, sad, or, everything in between. And so that's exactly what we try to do with Loving Funnels, is actually try to guide the customers into like, through the emotional roller coaster of a ride, into making sure that you have all the information necessary so that you can craft the perfect arrangement for their on their behalf. So that's fantastic.
I think, and that's been a great tool for us. I mean, we've had so many people that have responded back and been like, your website was so easy to use, and it was so friendly. It was like talking to you, is what I had one guy tell me. It was an older gentleman, and he was like, it was like talking to you. And he's like, it was so great, it was so easy. And he's like, and I just felt like they, like, he said, if it's possible to have a website care about me. So he was just like, he was great. And, I think that is really important. And I think that's why I felt so wonderful about having Lovingly as a partner, because I really feel like you guys are my partner. If you're succeeding, I'm succeeding, and vice versa. And so I think that's really another good tip and advice to give another flower shop owner. or new one, is that, you know, you really have to have all the great partners in place, and that you're all working together, and that you succeed together or fail together. So, you know, I think it took me a while to find you guys, and I'm glad I did, because it's been a huge game changer for me, huge. And I had a big, you know, contract with OSU for football season, and over the years they have changed and has really gone down, and now they're not doing it at all. But Lovingly has filled in that gap for me. So now I'm not so heavily dependent on those contracts, and it's freedom, really.
Wow, that's great. That's really great to hear. And, you know, it really goes back to pretty much everything that we've talked about. It's about relationships. It's about people, and it's about trust. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. So I know we're getting close to our wrap up time. So, you know, Jeanne Walters, I want to thank you again. Stargazer Florist, you've been tremendous. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to meet with us today. Any closing thoughts, any closing parting words, maybe to the other florists that are out there, just anything that you want to share with them?
I just think we all need to remember that we're in the business of people, and that we're in to trade those emotions for them. And we're really emotional relationship people and supporters. And I think that we need to remember that. And if we remember that, we'll make it through this season just fine, if not even stronger. And I'm really hopeful that this will really bring back even more so the importance of that cornerstone flower shop in the community, because we're needed and we're essential to, you know, keeping people connected, especially right now. And I think if we remember that, I think that we'll be just fine and get through it really well. So
wonderful parting words. Thank you so much. Yeah, this was a great hour. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to
thank you. It was fun. I really enjoyed it.
So did we.
We got to do it again.
Thank you so much. Yeah,
yes,
we'll do it again
definitely.
Soon. We're here for you if you need anything, Jeanne. So you take care, and thanks again.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
I really
Okay, enjoy the rest of your day. All right.
Yes, you too.
All
Bye-bye.
right, bye-bye.
We want to help your business bloom. Check out more episodes of Flower Shop Secrets streaming now. Flower Shop Secrets is brought to you by Lovingly. Lovingly connects shoppers to local florists all over the US and Canada to help make thoughtful gifting easy and impactful. Visit lovingly.com/join to learn more.